Okay, so the purpose of today's lecture is to understand the basics of how to extract some information from the database. Now, the most important part when we have a database is, of course, to design. After designing it and making sure it's answering exactly what we would like the database to be doing, is after also we fill the data, we enter all the values, is to be able to extract the information. Now, whether it's a company or a university or college or whatever it is, if we enter the data, it's not just, the purpose is not only entering the data for just like archiving. That's one way, it's just to keep something saved somewhere. But the most important use of those, databases, is to be able to extract the information. So that's the most important part, because you're saving, you're entering something to be able to see it later on, or maybe to have some calculations done, or for example, if you're a company, you'd like to see what were the past sales of a specific product, to be able to have some kind of data to analyze the situation and come with a better decision to improve the situation. If it's a company, they would like to increase their profit or lower their expenses. So if they see, for example, for this period, how much for the last year, how many of the one product did I sell, and then I might, for example, say, okay, this gives me an idea of maybe next year, how much would I sell? So when I'm going to order this product, when I'm going to order this product, I will just order with that same quantity, so I know what quantity to order. And if I know what quantity to order, I might negotiate a deal to have a lower price, because I'm ordering a bigger quantity. So this gives us to lower cost, higher profit. For us, for example, here as in the college, we're entering data for students, so we would like to be able to see, for example, all the students that have what's their GPA at a specific semester. Or if we'd like to have the intake, we'd like to know how many students joined in this semester, or how many students took a special course in this semester, so to try to have an estimate, okay, next semester, how many we might need to take this course. Or from all these courses, how many passed the course, and then we would like to be able to offer the next course that is based on this course. This course is the prerequisite of. So anyways, there's a lot of things that we can use to do some kind of analysis. The most important part is not to create the database, to enter the data, but to be able to extract the information. So to be able to extract the information, there's a special set of code. But now we're not going to go for the code. That's inshallah, the purpose of the next class. We'll start talking about it, and then next week. But now we just need to talk about the basics of when we would like to extract the information. What do we need to do? Now, that's the discussion that we're going to be focusing on. And basically, when we're going to be doing such a thing, we're going to be working with two types of operators: the select and the project. These are two operators. They have different symbols. We represent them in a specific way because we would like to get closer to SQL, the code that we're going to be using when we are going to be asking something in the database. Now, this select, it is represented with this sigma symbol, like a lowercase sigma, and this project with this pi representation, which is like the product. This is going to be the representation for those two operators. So we will learn what these two operators are doing. Now, the other things is that we need to get some information from different places and join them together. And there are different ways how to join this type of information, and we're going to be talking about that as well. How to join the information, how to join the tables to be able to extract some information. That's what we're going to be doing as well. So now, let's have a look at these first things. So what do we represent? What do we mean with this? These are very simple. Now, what is going to be a little bit tricky is when we apply those things. But just the theory about those is very simple, very straightforward, inshallah. Now, let's have a look at something, and then I would like to show you how we represent things. So what this select is all about, this is representation of the select. This select is just a set of conditions. A set of conditions. That means that this represents, when I use this symbol, after that, like in a subscript, I put the set of conditions that need to be respected. And here, between parentheses, I put the table from where this set of conditions need to be respected. Now, for example, let's have a look at this thing here. What does this say is that I would like to put some kind of conditions, and these are the conditions. DNO equal 4 and salary is greater than 25,000, or DNO is equal 5 and salary greater than 30,000. From where? From employee. Now the result of this is what? Is, as they call it, a relation, which is like a new table. But that new table is not stored somewhere, not stored in the database. Like, for example, when we create those tables, employee, works on, you remember those tables that, maybe I can find them here. Yes. Now these ones, let me just open them. Now these are the tables. Each one of them is a table that is going to be inside the database, or part of a schema that is inside the database. You remember the difference between database and schema, right? Schema is a collection of tables, all together give them a name, and this is a schema. And a database can have many schemas, which means I can have many sets of tables in one database management server, database management system. Now, these are some kind of tables which has permanent data that is stored somewhere. When I do something like this, this is not permanent. This is just going to look at the permanent data and give me the results as some kind of a table, but it's not a table, but I can access it the same way as a table. The only difference is that this is just a result of an operation, which means that it's not going to be stored. If I want to store it, I need to do some extra things to store it, but I'm not storing it. This is just looking at what's existing, stored, get the information and display it on the screen. That's what this does. So now we're not having any screen, we're just working on paper, so we're going to be understanding what will be the result of this. Now imagine that we have this data over here. So this is the table employee. Now this puts a condition on this table employee. That means now from the table employee, I'm going to take a copy and display it. But am I going to display all the records? No. I will display only the records that respect these conditions. And that's what this select does. When you do this select on a table, you're displaying all the columns. That means all these first name, middle initial, last name, all of them are going to be displayed. So what is not going to be displayed? Well, the rows, not all of them are going to be displayed, only the ones that match these conditions, that make this condition be true, are the ones that are going to be seen. Now, for example, if I'd like to do something like this, okay, did I save this somewhere? I did. So it's here. What I'm going to do, I just would like to open this software that allows me to.
So this what you mean by like how many students pass this course? We put that condition.
We were going to put.
All students
We put conditions to be able, for example, to know how many pass this course, etc. Yes. Now let me go here, SRC, and this is the one. Now I'd like to work with this to be able to strike things out, or can I just change color picker? And no, okay, I'm not a big image editor, but there's something that is I'm not able to use. Now it is something. Okay, that's crashed. Pinta. Let's open it again. Recent. Okay, let's keep the default one, even though it's green. I wanted it to be another color, but we don't care. Now let's have a look at this. We were having a look at this here. Now we have this condition here. Now this condition says we're not going to be displaying all the rows, only those rows that respect this or this. Now, for us to know which rows are going to be shown, we're going to be looking at the department number 4 and see if the salary is greater than 25,000. Now, this is department number 4, this is department number 4, and this is department number 4. So among those three lines, we need just to say which ones have the salary greater than 21,000. This one greater than 25,000?
No, it's equal.
No, so this is not going to be part of the solution, or maybe the answer to this query. And we said 25,000, right? This one is not part of it because it's equal, and the equal, there's no equal sign here. So it's strictly greater than 25,000. And this is okay, and this is not okay. So this is also not part of the result. So what else? So this is when this thing is going to give us only one line, this one over here. What about this one over here? Department number 5. So we're going to see if this one, this one, this one, and this one are going to be visible. Obviously this one is not going to be visible because it's not 4 and it's not 5. Because the OR means either this one is true or this one is true, which means both of these cases I'm going to see them. If it was AND, I'm not going to be able to see none. You know why? Because there's no way that you can find that the same line, the department number is equal to 4 and 5. It's impossible. So that's why if it was AND, nothing is going to show. But if nothing shows, it doesn't mean there's an error. It just means it's an empty. If the question was with AND, what I'm going to see, just the headers without any data. There's no data to display. Just the header with empty things. Now we said now let's have a look at this one, department number 5 and salary greater than 30,000. Do we have here greater than 30,000? No. So this is not going to be displayed. Greater than 30,000? Yes. Greater than 30,000? Yes. Greater than 30,000? No. So the result is I'm going to see this row, and this row in this order that they are in, like this one first, then this one, then this one, because this is basically what happens. Yes.
It's from department number 4.
Which one?
So it's included?
Which one is department number 4? This one?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so it's previous, yeah.
Because of this first part. Now this first part brought us this one. This second part brought us the department number 5. These two. So the end, what has happened when we do something like this, the database management system is going to bring the table and then eliminate all the records the same way we did it that do not respect the conditions. We then will keep only the ones that have the conditions, so which means we have something like this. That's easy, right? As of now, nothing completely fancy. All you have to pay attention to is what are the conditions, and then that's it. Now, sometimes I would like to put some conditions, but also I don't want to see all the columns, all the attributes. We don't call them attributes, but the table, the columns. So I need to put some kind of restriction on the columns. Now this select, put a restriction on the rows or the records. The product or the products, or sometimes it's called the projection, it just puts a kind of restriction on the columns that I would like to display. So if I don't want to see everything, for example, now this thing shows me all the employees that are in department number 4 with salary greater than 25,000, or in department number 5 with salary greater than 30,000. So it gives me all the data. But I don't want to see all the data. I just would like to see the first name and last name.
The ID.
Or maybe the SSN. So now this, I'll just say SSN. That's SSS, but SSN, that's what I meant. And then this means I'm going to see only the SSN. If I don't put any condition with it, that means it shows me the table, but only the SSN. Let me just cancel everything. Now if I just would like to use the projection with just SSN, what is going to happen, all these are going to be removed,
except
this SSN. So the result is going to be just SSN with all the data. Now what if I'd like to have not only the data, but I would like to put some conditions on the rows and the columns? Now what I can do, let me go back to here. No, to here. Let me just cancel everything, and then I'd like to show you what would be the result. Now what I'm going to do is do something like this. SSN. And I put a parenthesis, and inside that parenthesis, those parentheses, I put this thing. Which means what? How does it work? The first thing, like with Java or anything, when you have a lot of parentheses, you start with the parentheses, with the innermost. So we start with the innermost, which was this one. So we bring the table employee. From the table employee, we put those restrictions on the rows. So we're going to be seeing only, if I remember, this one. Oops, not here. So if I remember correctly, it was 4 and 25,000, which means not this one. This one though, so we're going to see this one, and for the 5s and greater than 31,000, which means we're going to see this one, and then this one. Yeah, so only those 3, right? The rest is not going to be displayed, only those 3 rows. Now if I put the condition, now after doing this, I would like to put also the condition on the columns, which means I'm not going to be seeing all these columns. I will see only this column of the SSN. Of course, with not all the rows, only which row? This one, this one, and this one. All the others, of course, they're not part of the results. So the result is going to be showing me only the SSN of only those employees that respect those conditions of being in department number 4 or and greater than 25,000 in the salary, or department number 5 and greater than 30,000. That's it. That's about this select and project. Project is not product. That's the main thing. Now, of course, you can use this and or not in the conditions, the same way that we used to use them in the Boolean expressions in the if or in the while or whatever it is. And that's pretty it for now. Now the problem is, what if we have some data, and this is how we present the projection. Same idea. When we have a projection and selection, generally we start with the projection first, and then we mention the selection later on. Because when we execute, we do the other way around. We start from the innermost, and then go for the condition on the rows, then condition on the columns. Now that's something. Now sometimes we have some kind of very long or complicated set of conditions. We'd like to give them some names, and we can do something like this. For example, you see, this means now this, the result of this, I'm going to save it as this name, and I can use this name as if it's a table, like this, which basically it's exactly like this one, but the difference between the two is that I'm just using, instead of, sometimes you have a lot of conditions like what we used to have in the one department number 4 and a salary greater than 25, etc. So it's going to be too long. You can shorten that by just giving them a name. So you give a name of a part of that expression, and then you can use that later on to do something like this. So these are the main things. Now what I'd like to do is to go for some examples, and then I'm going to talk about how to use information from different tables. Yes? Some kind like an assignment operator, yeah, something like that. But it's just, it's called the rename. So basically you rename this whole thing to be, you give it this name. But it's, as you mentioned, some kind of an assignment operator. But again, this is not for any programming. This is some kind of, you know, textual thing that we can do on paper. But then the idea is that when you have something complicated, you can break it into different parts. That's the idea. And doing this way, it makes sense. For example, if you read something like this, there's no table called dep 5 amps, but actually it was defined that dep 5 amps means the result of this operation, so you know what it means. You know table employee, you know this kind of condition, so you have an idea what this means. That's what it means. Now I don't want to go into the other part when we have more than one table. I'd like to talk about it later. So now, first of all, what I'd like to be doing is some kind of a practical exercise based on that. Now, based on these, this is the database. What we'd like to do is to be able to do these kind of things. So what will it take? How do I represent this question? And let's do the first one together and do the other ones later on. So list the names of all male employees. Now I need to go here. Do I have something that says male? Yeah, the sex, the column sex is the one that has the M and F. So if I'd like to know the names, so what do I want to see? Basically I want to see the names of all employees. Well, basically I need the condition should be on the sex, and what I'm going to display is maybe the first name and last name, because it says name.
It doesn't determine.
That was not mentioned. Is it first name, middle name, last name, middle initial and last name, or just the first name, just the last name? Well, if it says name, the name is composed of all these three, so I'm going to display all the three. So what would be the result of this? Let me just find something. Can I? The advantage is if I do something nice. Let me show you something that I can do. If I can go to the last one, so I can have some kind of a drawing, a 5, and next, that's an empty one, but I can draw on it. Now, the result is that I will have the projection. Oh, that's not the projection. And that's not the projection here. Okay, that's the projection of what I would like to see. I would like to see only the first name, middle name, last name. So how do I represent that like this? First name, because I'm just writing with my mouse, so I'm just going to shorten things up. But for you, you have to mention it exactly the same way that they're mentioned here. So first name, middle initial, and I put a comma. That's how we separate all the different column names, and then last name. And that's the thing. Then when I have list the names, I would like to put some condition on the employees, so I need to put the parentheses, and then I'm going to put the selection, and in the selection I'm going to put a condition on the sex. Now sex is some kind of a text, right? That's not a number, so let's put a text like this with these double quotes and put the M. Well, anyways, that's another discussion. It doesn't matter for now. It's not a char or a string, so let's put double, because we don't have any information. Is it a char or a string? We don't know. So let's assume it's a string, and that's it. And then what needs to be here is the table that I'm taking the information from, which is the table employee. So what's the table name? Is employee. So again, I'm just not going to write everything. And that will be the answer to this first question. Now it gets tricky later on, but when we have one table, it's kind of straightforward. So let's get used to that, and then we're going to be talking about when we have more than one table. Yes?
Possible to use select before project?
It's possible to use that, but yeah, that's still okay. But however, you have to be careful, because
You will get more fun.
no, because when you say something, for example, if I say the select, the sex is equal to etc., and then from the projection, when I have only first name, middle name, last name, so from employee. Now there's a problem. For example, when you say this, and I have only first name, sex is not part of this result. So this is going to be a problem. If you want it to happen, then you can put also first name, etc. with sex, but then you're going to be displaying also the sex. Yes, not 2 times, once. Because now what does this do? it will display the first name and the sex.
The sex.
So 2 columns. Now it will you just put a restriction on the columns.
That means the select we didn't.
You did not remove any lines. You just display everything, but this time instead of displaying the whole table, only the table with the columns, the first name and then the sex. Now if you'd like to put a condition on the sex, you can put a condition which will remove some lines, but it will not remove some columns. So then the result is going to be first name and then the sex male. So all of them are going to be M, because the condition was sex is equal to male. But that's not what we want, but just technically it works. But the better one is to leave these to the end, because the data is needed from the table. So you display the whole table, then you put a restriction on the data, on the rows, then you just display the columns that you want to display. That's better this way. Any other question?
Now we will continue the other.
Yes, I'd like you to continue the others. Let me free you to do that.